So in previous two lessons, we talked about NITI Aayog report, which is from Government of India. And I presented some of the research of water science and then show you some important aspects of how water cycles on Earth. So in this lecture, I'll be talking mainly about causes of water scarcity in India. And that too, I want to be very much focused on NITI Aayog report. And because that's what this presentation, this lecture is about, talking about NITI Aayog report. So the key challenges is driving this NITI Aayog report is that lack of water data. I mean, that's one of the things that's mentioned in the report is that not having enough data. So the first one NITI Aayog report talks is that this detailed data is not available for several critical sectors such as domestic and industrial use. So this water consumption is being used by, how much water consumption is used by industries, domestics, rural, urbans. There is not really a solid data. So what I'm going to say that here is that not enough, let's see. So I'm going to classify this as a data coverage. So when this report was prepared, Government of India just mentioned that, look, we are not sure that we are fully covering the entire India. So that's what I think. And then we just don't know that we have enough data available on where the water is going as far as the domestic and industrial use. The second one is about the quality of data. As you may have heard about garbage in, garbage out. In this case, what this report mentioned that some of the data, they have inferior quality, inconsistent, unreliable, because of the way because of the methods being used to collect the data. It's called as a data acquisition. So, for example, one of the examples it's mentioned in the report that it's estimated that groundwater are mostly based on observation data, and they are recording that it's 55,000 ground wells, but it's been known that there are like 12 million wells in the country. So you can see there is a huge discrepancy here. So I'm going to put down this as data reliability. And the third one is the important is that it's about lack of cooperation between center to center, between center and state and interstates. I mean, this one I decided to write it down because this is one of the factors. It relates to the policies. So what report says that there are 7 major disputes regarding the country's rivers, and it involves 11 states. And if you don't believe me, or if you don't believe in this report, you can just do any Google research or look into any publication or news, and you'll find out that some of the states, Indian states, they are fighting for the waters. And this has become political issues, and this has become people are on the street. So again, the reason is that the states are fighting for the water. It's that there is no national or there is a very limited national policies and coordination between the states on water policies. And then second factor for this is that there is a limited policy coordination on issues like agriculture incentives, pump electricity pricings, and etc. So these are the three things. So the reason I'm calling this as a causes, because if you don't have data, if you don't have sufficient data, if you don't have reliable data, you don't have any decision point, or you don't have any decision point so that you can make or change the policies. And this is all about water management. So in order to make policies, you need reliable and full data. So this is one of the reasons why I'm emphasizing that next generations, the Indian teenagers, they should learn about this NITI Aayog report, because right now, as of speaking 2018, NITI Aayog report, the Indian government, they are right now having this problem about having a reliable data. Now, one can say that what can I do? Well, we'll talk about in solution, but one of the solution I can give you that some of you will go into become data scientists. Some of you will become entrepreneurs. Some of you will become select agriculture as your future career path. So you can do many things to help India and Indian government here. It's not that you have to rely on Indian government. You can innovate many things to make so that all the data it goes to the government of India. They are more reliable and full. But again, this is something we'll talk about in solution. For now, this is just I'm talking about causes of water scarcity in India. Again, there are many causes. Now here comes the little bit complicated part. I'm not happy with this table. I took this table from the NITI Aayog and then I added my own comments, and I'll try my best to explain as simple as I could. But before we talk about this table, if you remember in research when I presented my lesson number 2, I put together a very terrible I drew this terrible sketch here which says that you have a class here where you have 29 students, and you want to find out how student A is performing against student B, and you want to find out what's the class statistics average. So what I mentioned that there are 3 activities. One way to find out that you ask each student to do these 3 different activities: written exams, physical exercise, and projects. And for each activities, you put the points. Coming back to here, in NITI Aayog report, they put down 9, and I'm going to just, let's say if I can make it activities. Again, this is just for teenagers to make it simple as possible, okay? And these are the points. So this is easy to understand in your classroom discussion, okay? So the first theme is, let's see, it's about restoration of water bodies like rivers, ponds, and tanks. And here, tanks are being referred as reservoir. How states are doing in order to boost up this irrigation potential in the state. So are states doing enough to restore these water bodies? So that has 5 points. Number 2 is about the groundwater. Are states doing enough to recharge this critical groundwater every year? Most states have achieved less than 50% of total scores in the augmentation of groundwater resources. That's something, one of the things we need to note here. Number 3 is about supply side management on major and medium irrigations. So this focuses on irrigation system and utilization across the state. So currently, the reason I put down an arrow here is that currently water has been considered as a state of subject. So, and as I mentioned previously, that states are disputing over the water. So that's kind of discouraging. Number 4 is about watershed supply side management. And this point, it talks about performance on managing and restoring watershed units. So mainly it's focusing on rain-fed agriculture, construction, and geotagging of water harvesting structures. So number 5 is about irrigation practices, demand side management, meaning that what I understood that most of the state, they should have water user associations, and then how this association been engaged with the users and then other states. So that's my limited understanding about this. That has 10 points, by the way. Number 6 is about sustainable on-farm water use practices. This is all about how water is being used in agriculture industries. Now, as you know that, or you may not know about it, but 80% of the water consumptions is agriculture, and that's the demand for India. And so this requires a major corporations policies and by different stakeholders, because majority of the state, they perform poorly on this critical theme. And that's one of the reasons why India has a growing water and food insecurity issues, because if 80% of the water consumption it goes to agriculture, that means that 20% of water is remaining for rest of the usage. So this is the major sector where India can do better in terms of solving this water scarcity. And then, of course, government should also do it. Government should also come up with a subsidy, like how do you do micro irrigation? Micro irrigation means dripping systems instead of just flood irrigations. How do we use this water efficiently by micro irrigation? Number 7 is about rural drinking water. So it's focusing on service delivery of water to rural areas. Now this is interesting. I should not say interesting, but this is discouraging that about 70% of the India's population, which is approximately 800 million people, they live in rural area. So that makes India the largest water service delivery challenges in the world. This is one of the challenges when you are 70% population living in rural area and you need to supply the water. So what happens is that every year, approximately 200,000 people or 2 lakhs people, they died because they are not getting safe drinking water. And that's a challenge. Number 8 is urban water supply and sanitation. So this theme mainly focusing on supply and treatment of urban water, and more than 90% of urban population has had access to the basic water. But only 1/3 of India's wastewater is currently treated, and that could lead to waterborne diseases. Sorry about that if I'm talking too fast or not clearly. And number 9 is about policies and, let's see, where is my tracker? And governance. This is mainly focusing on variety of policies put in place by the state government to enable effective water management. That means that, as we just talked, we have been talking throughout the way that there is a need for national water management policy or national level policies, because right now at least 7 states in India, they are disputing. I'm talking about in year 2018. They are disputing over 11 sources of rivers or water. So that tells you that there needs to be a policies and legislation to be passed on this. So legislation for protection and restoration of water bodies, you require that. A framework for water harvesting in buildings, and the pricing of water, urban water. And then the existent and regular validation of integrated data for water in the state. So again, this is all on high level. It talks about there needs to be policy on what should be the pricing of the water and urban water, how much water we should be using for agriculture, the water harvesting buildings, and how we should protect and restore our water bodies. That's rivers, lakes, and tanks. Okay. Again, I don't believe that I have done a very good, decent job, but at some point I will come up with a better presentation as far as this 9 themes. But again, I highly recommend that you should, if you want to look into this report, and this is a very good report. I may have given you a link to this report. Let's see if I can find out. So this report is, yeah, there you go. So I'm going to click on this, and this report is in the form of PDF, and it's very intense. And like I said, that this is a fantastic report. So my goal here was that based on this report, I try to explain to high schoolers about the water scarcity in India, and what a fantastic job Indian government they have done when it comes down to data acquisition and data analysis. Of course, there are many inefficiency in data acquisition, the method, but it's a great effort by Indian government, no doubt about it. So, coming back to our lecture. So I think the next lecture is going to be about impacts of water scarcity in India. Stay tuned.